you think about it, the thing that initially we were told, from the county is you guys are gonna have to cancel this tournament.
Really?
And yeah, and we just and we we spent some time driving around, on Friday, and there was a lot of devastation. I mean, I'm not talking North Carolina stuff, but you had trees down in homes. You had roads blocked. There was a lot of damp power lines
And they
down. A
were
lot of people
telling
got
you
power.
like because of water conditions you might have to cancel it, or what was their logic
I
on that?
think their logic was they're closing boat ramps down. They weren't sure how the winds were going to continue on the lake. It was just really a safety deal. And
Gotcha.
so we really just paid attention to the weather, to be honest, Ryan. I mean, that was the deal. Pay attention to the weather. How can we adapt? I mean, if you take us out of the equation, you got 9 countries that have spent a lot of money to get
Yeah.
here and fish. The last thing you want to do is cancel,
Oh yeah, that
and
would suck.
so yeah.
That
And
would
so
be terrible.
how do you pull this thing off, make it safe?
She had it pretty good. Yeah, but other than that, you know, having the ramps being to open launch to 5 ramps definitely changed the game plan because me and AJ was up there on Monday to practice, and basically everything that we had practiced was out the window. So it just started out fresh, just like with everybody else. So it's a very even playing field. So yeah, it was really done very well.
If it's bass fishing, I'll say this for the international competition stuff. If it's bass fishing, you stand a pretty good shot at it. But when you go for like those kind of off the wall species and not even, pike and muskie, like we had anglers on Team USA that had experience, pursuing those fish, but the way that they fish them over there in those lakes and stuff, like they'll spot a pike, off side scan in 200 feet of water and drop down a swim bait on it, kind of like vertical jigging almost. And like, that's the kind of stuff until you're there and you watch what people are doing. When you go into it, you have no clue that that's how you would even try to target those fish. Like that blew my mind. I was like, there's no way that that's how they catch these fish.
Yeah, yeah, and that was one of the really cool thing, right? So, like Richard said, we just came back from Italy, and the one thing that was really brutal for us was the perch, and it was quite hard to figure out the perch because what do you think perch would be up shallow and throw like crappie jigs and catch those guys, right? But that wasn't the case for this place. The perch seemed to be anywhere from 60 to 100 feet of water, and you'd have to drop shot with at least a 1 ounce
Yeah.
weight. So it's definitely different. And if you're scoped, they're extremely hard to pick up because majority of the fish that you scope out there are junk fish. There's a lot of tench, there's a lot of muskies, there's a lot of bass out there. Even some of our bigger bass that we've caught, we're in about 60 to 80 feet, and there's just a bunch of random junk fish out there. So yeah, like you're saying, it's just much more different, and it's really cool to see how the fishing is in other places and how the fish are actually on that body of water and how they act.
So normally they fish them with scope, but in that tournament we couldn't use live scope. So that's why the guys were using like side scan and spotting them on side scan, and that's what really kind of impressed me and humbled me the most. I was like, dude, there's no way I'm seeing something on side scan, stopping, turning, and pitching, exactly to that point. Like, you can have it. You got me. If they won't eat a chatterbait, I'm going home. Which is
Ri-
pretty much every tournament that I fish.
Yeah, Richard, tell us a little bit about the rules for this tournament. Obviously, international competition, bass fishing for this one in particular, but motors allowed, scope allowed. Did you do anything different because of the international folks coming in? Tell us a little bit about the rules for this event.
So rules for international and Pan American are ironically they're different.
Yeah, they'd react to it, but the trick to catching those guys was really just burning it to trigger them, and that was the way to catch them. And but the bass fishing, the following day we did some bass fishing. Of course, we went and beat docks around our lunch, and I figured everybody's gonna be doing that, so I didn't want to do that. Try to look for some offshore rock, and Murray was very different. It didn't have a lot of offshore rock piles or anything like that. It's just really plain. A lot of it just dirt. A
Yeah.
lot of these fish don't glue to the bottom. They are almost all the time seems like they are chasing bait all the time or roaming. So it was very hard to get on those fish. But me and Anthony practiced the last day together, and we found a cove where the fish were busting bait, and these fish are roaming quite fast. Uh, and we figured that since the water had dropped the water to prep it for the storm, water was going to rise drastically. So the main focus was to focus on these offshore suspended fish roaming out in over like 80 feet of water. Just because these fish don't, these fish are, if you notice, like, if you look on social media, a lot of teams, they're posting their catches and stuff, and you could tell uh, that their fish that they're catching are shallow fish, just because of how skinny they are. And the fish that if you see somebody post a fish that's very fat and it's been feeding, those are the offshore suspended fish chasing bait. And these fish seem to be chasing bait for a very long time already. So if the weather changes, it's not going to affect these guys because these guys are already been feeding. So our main target was to target those suspended feeding fish. Even if the water goes up, water dirties, these fish will still be doing what they're going to be doing. They're not affected. So that was the main goal. We just want to go target those suspended fish in over 80 feet of water and stuff. But I think it was doing something different for me. But we're fishing the same areas. But this was a team effort event, which was really nice because they're constantly communicating with teammates to make sure that everybody has a limit. If I get on a school of stripers and I got my limit, I'll call Anthony and say, "Hey, man, you need stripers, man. This schools are right here, right now. You better get over here." And it's all a big team effort thing. You know, if you got a limit of bass, you leave the good stuff to another angler, another teammate to come and fish the good stuff. So it's a lot of really sharing intel information with everybody that's on your team, there's no hiding anything. That the main goal is to win the gold as a team. The individual stuff would just fall in place, but the main thing is to win it. And yeah, that's basically what we did. We just went to the creek arms, fished the mouths of it, and target these offshore suspended.
Yeah, clearly. Clearly.
Oh man, that's awesome. So when you had to make your adjustment, what did you do when the spoon bite disappeared?
So when the spoon bite disappeared, right? Anthony caught one on the top water, and then he told me that, hey, these fish that are on these fish that are on these that we were catching the spoon, and what he was throwing was a kitech through these suspended fish, that they're willing to come up for the top water. So I started throwing top water.